Welcome. This is the Custom Built and Screwed podcast. My name is Eric, and if you're interested in what is currently influencing housing affordability, construction costs, or delayed timelines, then you're in the right place. And hey, I reserve the right to talk about other things going on in Canada or the rest of the world that I find interesting or annoying. Okay, on this week's podcast, we are going to talk about the land title issues that are coming up in Richmond again and how that is affecting some people's ability to get mortgages. We're going to talk about the province of BC's Bill 44 density and the impacts that it is already going to have on infrastructure and that sort of thing. Of course, got to touch base on the stormwater management situation. Also want to talk about just, general frustration when you're trying to do your job right and the documentation on the government website doesn't match what they actually want you to do in real life. Always frustrating. I want to talk a little bit about my take on the step code and what I think we need to do as Canadians to deal with that and the repercussions of what's going on with respect to the step code, CPI, Bank of Canada cuts, and also I'm really excited to share a sponsorship that we are doing with the Dovercourt Crypt here in North Vancouver. It is an absolutely bonkers crypt. So if you live anywhere in the Lower Mainland, strongly encourage you to make the journey to Lynn Valley over the next couple of days. I think they close up shop on the 1st, so don't have a lot of time. We're recording this on the 29th, so see what you can do to get out and check it out. Of course, gotta have a little bit of a touch base on the good old Blue Jays and how they're doing. As of recording this podcast, the series is tied at 2-2, and when I turned my phone off before I hit the record button, the Jays were up 2-0. So I'm not a huge sports watcher or sports fan, but I know a lot of you out there are. So go Jays go, and hopefully Canada can bring home a World Series. That would be pretty freaking awesome, and I'm sure there would be some pretty massive celebrations in Toronto if that comes to fruition. So very, very cool stuff. All right, let's dive in and let's talk about this land title issue in Richmond. Okay, so what's happened is courts have recognized Aboriginal title in a defined area, and now there's an 18-month window for governments to sort it out. The issue that's coming up already are banks hate uncertainty, right? And so there are people that are trying to get new loans and new mortgages on their properties in this section of land, and banks are not renewing or refinancing their properties for them. So imagine being in that position where, I saw a video today of a gentleman who's owned his property since 1975. He went to go and get another mortgage on it. Who knows why you would still need to get a mortgage on a home you've had since 1975. But that's not my business. It's not our business. But he's owned the property since 1975. And now he can't get financing for a home that was his because there's this question mark as to who is actually on title for this piece of property. So, I guess, my word of caution for everybody out there is, really be careful about what you say, because, when we use that word unceded in land acknowledgements, we're effectively saying that we don't believe we own this property. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know I'm paying my mortgage every 2 weeks. Don't know about you. Or maybe actually we're paying it every week. But nonetheless, I know we're paying it. And so I definitely feel like I own my home. I sure hope I still do. Now, I mean, just to be very clear though, right? Private titles have not been canceled. None of that sort of stuff has happened yet. And, right now the government of BC is appealing the Supreme Court ruling, and that is hopefully going to take place over the next 6 to 12 months. We'll see what happens, but I mean, it's a pretty significant landmark ruling, and it's really, putting into question who owns what here in the province of BC specifically, right? So just something to be aware of, something to know what's going on in the world for sure if you live in British Columbia, because the entire, not the entire, but I mean a good chunk of the financial system And certainly the banking system relies on fee simple land ownership. And, if we can't know who owns the property, like, it's going to cause a lot of grief, a lot of grief. So, you know what? Make sure you're talking about it. And I'm the first to say, like, we need to deal with and address reconciliation. But I really think we need to be very pragmatic and practical about how we go about doing that. So you tell me what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Now, let's move on to Bill 44 and the province of British Columbia and this schmoo density nonsense. I know we keep talking about it and we keep hammering on it, and I'm going to continue to sound like a broken record because, honestly, if we're not talking about this stuff, then it doesn't get talked about. And these things just happen, and before you know it, the city in which you live is transformed into something that you don't even recognize, right? Now, I get that the province and the feds want to increase housing, and they feel like the best way to increase housing is to increase density. I don't know about that, right? I mean, sure, we've got the infrastructure somewhat in place, but like I tell you, like the pipes in the ground can only hold so much stuff. There's only so much water in the reservoirs. There's only so many tennis courts and ice rinks and baseball fields and whatever else it is that you're into. So I'm not convinced that this density side of things is the way to go, based on the way that at least like BC was designed, built, and set up, right? I know in a lot of other places density was thought about, transportation and infrastructure was thought about before they started going up and creating more density. We really need to speak up. We really need to talk to our councillors, our MLAs, and let them know that, like, hey, while we appreciate the density, the need for density, and we need more housing. Maybe we don't appreciate the need for density, but we definitely appreciate the need for more housing. We really need to be careful and cautious and thoughtful about how we go about implementing it, right? You can't just, like, this is not the field of dreams. Build it and they will come. And the they isn't the ball players from that movie. It's the infrastructure in the ground. We cannot be increasing our density. We cannot be increasing our population without making sure that we are increasing the number at a minimum of hospital beds. I mean, I think that's something that we can all agree on. How many times have you gone to the hospital here in BC and seen gurneys and stretchers and whatnot lining hallways? Like, we really need to think about our infrastructure and the bare needs that we need, right? And we're paying a lot of taxes. So where the hell is that tax money going? Oh, wait. Great segue. Wastewater treatment plant started off $700 million in 2013. It's at 3.89 in 2025 here. That's a 550% increase. Now, I know the cost. I absolutely know the cost of things have gone up since 2013, but 550% gone up? No. Once again, this is just absolute, pure, unadulterated bureaucratic incompetence. We need to have a public inquiry. Somebody needs, or some people need to lose their jobs and be replaced with people that are competent and know what they're doing. Enough with the wasted tax dollars. For the love of everything holy. I know I work hard for my money. I know everybody that works here at Team Sprucehill. We all work so hard to earn the money that we do. And to see it squandered and wasted is just so disheartening. So come on, guys. Let's get some accountability happening. Let's figure out who screwed up, what screwed up, and let's get it dealt with, addressed, and show the people of this province that you care. I don't think that is asking too much. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. All right, so the next thing that we're talking about today is this stormwater management system issue thing here. And now this is specifically in the district of North Van currently. I know the city of Vancouver is toying with this sort of thing. I don't think the city of North Van has got there yet. But I'm telling you, this stormwater management bylaws in the district in North Van are so confusing, so convoluted, right? We have a project that is waiting to get approved for permits. We have paid, or not we, our clients have paid not tens, but like well over $10,000 in professional fees to put together a plan that our geotechnical engineers or civil engineers feel is safe, sound, won't harm the environment, and is good to go. We submit it and it gets rejected for one reason or another. If we're going to pay the professionals to come up with a plan, then should it not be accepted? Like if it meets the requirements? I mean, honestly, like, why not just tell us what you want? Like, tell our clients what you want. Okay, you're doing this renovation. This is what you need to put in your backyard. Why are you putting the onus on the homeowner to figure out what to do? And then when they submit what they want to do, you just reject it. And it's not like you get rejected in like a couple of weeks. Like, we're talking like months and months and months. So the stormwater issue in the district of North Van is out of control. It has been since they made the change 2 or 3 years ago, and they did it basically in secret. Very few people knew or understood the unintended consequences of what was going to happen when they changed the definition of a couple of words with respect to the stormwater management plan here in the district of North Vancouver. It's out of control. It's not working. It needs to be addressed. It needs to get fixed. And I really do call on the mayor and council here of the District of North Vancouver to address these issues. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And hey, listen, if you think homeowners are going to maintain and keep up with these crazy detention tank systems that you're making them put on their properties, you're dreaming, right? All of these detention tanks, all of these stormwater management systems that you're asking homeowners to put on their property, they can bypass them once they pass final inspection. There's no way to make sure that what has been installed will continue to be used. And I promise you, as soon as there's an issue with it, they're going to bypass it, right? If we're so concerned about stream protection, protect the streams yourselves, or District of North Van, City of Vancouver, whatever it is. Come up with your own detention tank system. Come up with your own stuff on your own property that will deal with this stuff. Stop offloading responsibilities that are yours and yours alone onto the property owners. This is something that really, really and truly we need to have the city deal with. If this is important to the city, then the city needs to deal with it. All right. Okay. So the next thing, which goes again, like just a different jurisdiction, but we're doing a big reno in the city of Burnaby. Our project manager is dotting all his I's, crossing all his T's, and calls for an inspection. Inspector shows up and he's like, "Oh, dude, you haven't done this." And my project manager's like, "Well, sir, I followed the instructions per this document on your website, and I've gone through the checklist and I've checked everything off. And according to this document, I'm exactly where I need to be in order to pass this inspection." And the inspector's like, "Whoa, man, that's an old document. Nobody refers to it anymore." Well, then why the hell is it on the website? Take it down. Mark it as old, deprecated, whatever you want to do, but make it very obvious for people that this is no longer a valid document. The results, or the result of not doing so, right, is now you're having one of your inspectors come out to a job site to do nothing. Like, he's not able to actually do his job because he's been called to the project before the project is ready for him to view it. So we have to make sure, and I beg you guys, like, keep this stuff up to date. Like, it's already hard enough to be, and I feel like a whiner here, I really do. But I mean, it's just so frustrating when you're trying to do the right thing, and then in doing so, you take one step back. I mean, it's just, we need some collaboration here. We need to get back to where things were like 2017, 2018. The relationship between the municipalities and builders and clients was so much more collaborative, so much more positive. I mean, still sometimes frustrating. Like, let's be honest, it is never smooth sailing. But I mean, the amount of red tape and hoops that we're having to jump through here in 2025 is out of control. Let's get back to basics. Let's make building fun again. Please, 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 please. Which takes me to my next topic of conversation, and that is the step code. The step code was something that was put into the federal building code back in, I think it was around 2020. And the idea was that Canada would work its way towards net zero in 2030. Well, what's happened is you've had a number of jurisdictions, like the city of Vancouver, for example, say, well, you know what, we're just going to go straight to net zero. Well, I'll tell you what, industry has not caught up. Most people in this business don't understand what it takes to build to net zero, how to create net zero, and all of the nuance that goes. A net zero home is an extraordinarily complicated and complex thing to get done. Like, it is not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. And I will tell you one thing, it is sure as fuck not affordable, right? Like, it is just not affordable. There is no such thing as a high performance, affordable item. Like, it just does not exist. And if it does, tell me what it is in the comments, because I sure as hell don't know. I'll tell you what, if Lamborghinis were affordable, we'd all have one, but they're not, right? There's no such thing as affordable high performance, and we are being demanded to build to net zero. With the affordability crisis, with the construction crisis, with the approval crisis, because people don't know what's coming or going and how to do whatever, here's my proposal. Let's push the pause button on this march to net zero and say, you know what, instead of 2030, we're going to aim for 2040. Let's give industry a little bit more runway to get from A to B, if that's really where you want to go. I personally don't believe net zero is where we want to go. If you ask me, let's take a home that was built in the 1970s, make it leaky, not airtight, all of these sorts of things, very, very affordable to build, throw a heat pump on it, and you're going to get more than 90% satisfaction on your energy efficiency and making it, pollute less and less carbon into the air, right? Like that is a way more effective way to go for industry and for everybody. This net zero ridiculousness is out of control. I ran a ton of math, and you can do the modeling yourself, work with ChatGPT, figure out your own prompts. But, you can add 6 inches of GPS insulation to your walls, outside of your walls. You can add 8 inches of GPS insulation to the top of your roof, right? You can insulate the bejesus out of your home. You can make it super airtight so it doesn't leak at all. And airtightness is like one of the most important things in terms of like energy preservation, for the record, right? So airtight, insulated, right? You're going to spend somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 getting that stuff done. You're going to save somewhere in the vicinity of $1,500 to $3,000 a year in energy savings. Like, on what freaking planet does that make sense? It just doesn't. It just does not make sense. The math doesn't math, despite what everybody is trying to do. The math didn't make so much sense, in fact, that a bunch of people had to decide, like, oh, well, we're not going to like look at net zero from this way. We're going to now start thinking about carbon capture and putting carbon into wood and building straw huts and these sorts of things, because, straw and forest and that sort of thing, they collect carbon, and you can now carbon capture by using wood and that sort of thing as an offset to your carbon footprint. I mean, the amount of mental gymnastics that you are going through to try and figure out a justification for this insane level of construction that we're being asked to build to. I know this is a very controversial opinion I've got here, but I'm tired of not talking about it. I was talking to a colleague literally 2 days ago about this stuff. He echoed very similar opinion. Everybody's too afraid to say this stuff because they are afraid they're going to come out as somebody that doesn't believe in climate change. You don't have to believe in climate change or not believe in climate change to also understand that, like, we need homes for our kids to live in. And you can still build a home for your kid to live in and still make it have a limited impact on the environment, right? Like, I mean, if you really want to get into the brass tacks, think about how much energy goes into putting all of these additional materials into our homes, right? Like, you take a home that was built in the 60s or 70s, you had a concrete foundation wall, no rebar. I'm not saying that I'm agreeing with it. I'm just saying, like, that's what was there. So don't go jumping down my throat, right? Concrete foundation wall, no rebar. You had 2x4 framing. You had single pane windows. You had one layer of building paper. You had some sort of horizontal siding. You had overhangs. Overhangs are probably the most important thing you can put on your house if you're worried about your building envelope rotting and causing problems. You had some insulation. I think, it was probably like R12 back in that time frame, and you might have had R12 or R14 in your ceiling. Certainly no poly, no air tightness. I mean, like, definitely a leaky home in terms of airflow. Like, it definitely not airtight. And then, probably back in that day, you might have had an oil furnace. Maybe you might have had propane or natural gas at that point in time, but I mean, probably oil. I mean, if you go back an extra 20 years, you might have had a coal-fired furnace. Again, technology changes. And really, it's the technology that we're putting into the home that really is going to move the needle the most, right? Think about the amount of energy that is required to fabricate the product that we are now having to use in our homes, right? Think about the energy that's used to fabricate and create any sort of exterior mounted insulation or interior mounted insulation. That's not just bad insulation. Bad insulation, not rocket science. We've been using it for decades. But, you go to GPS or some sort of other, exterior mounted insulation. Think of the energy that goes into that. Think of the energy that goes into creating 3 panes of windows if you're doing a triple pane window, which you would need to if you're going to net zero, by the way, right? You're going to be replacing those sealed units once every 15 years, maybe 20 if you're lucky. Whereas, and I'm not suggesting we should go back to single pane windows, but if we did go back to single pane windows, those windows last the lifetime of the house. The seal never broke. They never got foggy. They never failed until your kid threw a ball through it. And sorry, Dad, that I did that. Actually, I think it might have been a hockey puck. But nonetheless, sorry, Dad, for breaking that window when I was a kid. But it was just one window, and it was relatively easy to fix, right? So you just start to really critical think and look at all of the different things that are going on here. I have yet to have a conversation with anybody that could really argue against any of the points that I've brought forward in terms of the actual overall environmental cost of some of these things that we're having to do. And it's like, I mean, how the hell do you do it, honestly? Like, it is so difficult to calculate what these environmental costs may or may not be. But I mean, I can tell you, I have renovated so many homes over the years. And here in North Van anyways, there was a builder by the name of Crest Construction. These guys built phenomenal homes. If you've been lucky enough to own a Crest home, you'll know what I mean. But, all of their homes had overhangs. They all had 2x4 walls. They all had nice framing. These homes were in the exact same condition as they were more or less than they were built. I mean, obviously, like, the shag carpet's a little bit worn at this point in time. And I have seen some original shag in some of these homes, believe it or not. But nonetheless, I don't know. I would love to have a conversation with anybody that is willing to talk about where the practicality comes in terms of making sure that we are being overly environmentally, well, no, that's not the right phrasing. I want to make sure that we are doing things that actually make a difference, right? You know, the other thing with a lot of these new construction techniques that we're having to use, like especially spray foam, any wall or any roof that you spray foam, you can't recycle it, right? So I would suggest that the amount of things that are recyclable, and, you know, look at all the sealants that we're using, Acoustiseal on the end of floor joists and all of these sorts of things. Like, as soon as you start applying paint and sealants to lumber and to building materials, they're no longer recyclable, right? Like, you can't put that into the garden, right? You can't compost it. It's garbage. As soon as you start adding any of these oil-based products to the lumber, you are creating garbage. So take a home that was built in the 60s or 70s, almost entirely recyclable. Take a home that's being built today, very little can be recycled. Like, we need to be having more of these open dialogues and conversations about end of life of these homes and really what makes sense. And more than anything else, what is affordable? We really need to stress that point. Like, the building code changes, the seismic upgrades to the building code, the energy efficiency upgrades to the building code. I get it. Like, there's a reason for doing it, but it's not affordable. It just isn't. I don't know. That's my thoughts. All right. So let's now talk about the Bank of Canada. Bank of Canada today announced a 25 basis point cut. I would suggest that's really good for my industry anyways. I expect that the phone will ring a little bit more than it has been as people are feeling a little bit more, a little less cautious about spending money on renovations or building new homes or that sort of thing. I mean, it is probably also an indicator that the economy of Canada in general is not as strong as Tiff Macklem would hope that it is. We'll see what happens at the next rate announcement. There's murmurings that there might be another rate cut this year. We'll see. What I find interesting about that, though, is they have reduced interest rates. Meanwhile, the inflation rate is running a little bit hot for September. It jumped up to 2.4. My suspicion is the reason why they're kind of ignoring that inflation rate hike is because it is looking at previous home prices and rental costs. And obviously, well, maybe not obviously depending on where you live, but certainly here in the Lower Mainland, the cost of buying a home and the cost of rent have definitely decreased over the last 6 to 7 months. And those decreases aren't going to be reflected in the CPI reports, you know, for another 5 to 7 months, right? So let's see what happens. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future. Maybe there'll be another rate cut. Maybe there won't. Tough to say. But, you know, one of those things to keep an eye on, and certainly one of those things to consider and think about when you are going to go renew your mortgage. Do you go fixed or do you go variable and roll the dice? Curious ponderance. Who knows? Who knows? All right. So the last thing that I am really excited to talk about is a sponsorship and a collaboration that Sprucehill is doing with the Dovercourt Crypt here in Lynn Valley, British Columbia. Mark and Liz are just the most phenomenally, amazingly nice humans you could ever meet. And they go through into an insane amount of time and effort to create this absolutely spooky crypt that you can walk through. It's just all by donation, and the donations are going to the Vancouver Firefighters Burn Fund. It is incredible, and I had the privilege of interviewing them earlier in the week. Kyle can maybe cut to a little bit of footage of some of those questions and some of that interaction that we had on Monday. I'm planning on going there Friday night to interview people as they come out of the crypt and hear their experience there. On weeknights, I think like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there's no actors. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I can't remember the schedule. But when there are actors in the crypt, it is scary. I won't even go through it. I don't like scare. That's not my thing. I'm a chicken shit. I'm not a huge scary guy. But yeah, it is a crazy, crazy, crazy place. So, it would be great to come out and support Mark and Liz and the Dovercourt Crypt. There's so many volunteers and so many people that give so much of their time to supporting these folks. And I think it's just an amazing thing that they do. And I'll tell you what, the community seems to be really behind them. There's, frequently a decent line there. And it seems that a lot of people are having fun while they're there. So, hey, if you've got some time, head down to the Dovercourt Crypt and check it out. That's it for me this week. I am so grateful for you taking the time to hang out and listen to what I have to say. If you have any thoughts or questions of things that we can talk about in future podcasts, I would certainly love for you to comment below and let me know what those are. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching and stay awesome. Bye now.